the village idiot. And I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. Welcome back to the City of Leeds, and today I'm beginning this one at a road called Beckside in LS25. This will be the first of what will be like a mini three-part series, because I'm stood at a tri-point where three civil parishes meet. Everything you can see in shot right now belongs to Lotherton cum Aberford on that side of the road. On this side of the road, everything belongs to Parlington. But today, we're looking at the other one. North of both of these, you'll find the parish of Aberford. Aberford is a village and civil parish on the eastern outskirts of the City of Leeds. It's a linear village running from north to south alongside the A1. We begin by driving from the north, entering the village at junction 44, heading for Hayton Wood View, where we'll start our main walk. Aberford's growth has historically been along this main road, and the village has therefore developed that linear rather than nucleated profile. Its proximity to the A1 is no fluke either. As we've learnt countless times before, the A1 is the modern route of the Great North Road. Aberford is yet another village which the road used to pass through. These days, the A1 provides a bypass for the village and traffic sails past, leaving the village in comparative peace. Aberford was where the Great North Road crossed over the Cock River, which we'll get a look at later. If that name's familiar, that's because we've seen it before in the Selby series. No longer termed a river, it's now reduced in volume and has been renamed Cock Beck. Aberford was also the midway point between London and Edinburgh, being around 200 miles distant from each city until the construction of the A1M motorway bypass starting at Hook Moor. It's important to note that Aberford village spans quite a distance, and given there's not really a circular walking route I could have taken, this northerly section was easier to cover using the car. Much of this one is designated as a conservation area, and it's not hard to see why. The northern boundary of the village is defined as the A64 road from Leeds to York and Scarborough. At the south end, what was Hicklam Mill Farm defines the boundary. It's now a small, certified caravan and camping site. The parish boundaries are much wider. Aberford village is generally along the eastern edge, with the rest of the area taken up by fields and farmland and some bits of the Parlington estate. Aberford, whilst a village in its own right, is split between three civil parishes. That's why not everything within the village will be in this video. Don't worry though, the bits that aren't will feature in future episodes. The village had a population of 1,059 at the 2001 census, and that increased to 1,180 at the 2011 census. Here we are 10 miles east-northeast of Leeds city centre in the LS25 postcode area. The village lies slightly east of the narrow basal sandstone boundary between the central Leeds coal measures and much harder magnesian limestone deposits. The area is shaped heavily by subsidence. Much of the village was formerly owned by Oriel College, Oxford, which also received tithes from Aberford. There used to be a tithe barn here, and we'll see where it is later. From a parish council perspective, Aberford is the largest of a group of four, which are combined together to form Aberford and District Parish Council. These include Parlington, Lotherton cum Aberford and Sturton Grange. This is a settlement considered a place of special architectural and historical interest, with quite a few notable buildings. Some of them are listed structures, like for example Aberford House, a classical 18th century mansion on Main Street, and the Gascoigne almshouses. Remember though, this is a three-part series for a reason, and the almshouses, although in Aberford village, fall over the boundary into one of the other two civil parishes here. Okay, this is how daft the parish boundaries are here. Where I'm stood is just to the south of Cock Beck. Now, all the houses you can see in shot right now on the right hand side, they all fall within Lotherton cum Aberford. Everything on the left over there. That is Aberford civil parish. And then to confuse matters even more, we're going to go a little bit further south in a moment and we'll come across some that are in Parlington. Aberford is shared between 3 civil parishes. It's weird. Well, considering this is the Aberford video, we're going to concentrate on the stuff on that side, but don't worry, I will film some bits and bobs on this side because those will go into the Lotherton come Aberford video. The name Aberford comes from the Old English woman's name Edberg and Ford, which then as now meant ford. Thus Aberford literally translates to Edberg's Ford. This highlights the settlement's once strategic importance. Like much of this part of West Yorkshire, Aberford was in the ancient kingdom of Elmet, the name given to the local parliamentary constituency. There's quite a lot of history here, as you might expect. An Anglo-Saxon gold ring inscribed with the name of King Alfred the Great's sister, Ethelwith, was found in a ploughed field near the village in 1870, and you'll find it now in the British Museum where it's been since 1897. In the 17th century, the village was a major place for the manufacture of pins. Right, and here we are again with the boundary with Parlington. Now, that house there, the one with the green door, that's the last one heading south that's in Aberford. Everything on this side of the road is still Lotherton come Aberford, but everything else here, from Beckside downwards, is Parlington. It's so confusing, isn't it? This is the, I suppose, the tri-point where they all meet, just here in front of Beckside. Quite often whilst walking I had to look down at the floor. Not all of the paving slabs are even. This just adds to the place's character though, I thought. Gotta tell you, this is a beautiful place, this. Part of Leeds that looks really good, really good. A lot of these sandstone buildings, which I imagine look really good in the sunshine, you know, when the sun's out and shining on them. But to be fair, they look nice now. Some stunning architecture here. Nikki would love this place. As I headed back to the north, this building caught my eye from the bridge over the Cock Beck. That leads me to a question. Now, I'm no expert, but that building right there has all the hallmarks of an old watermill. Am I right, Aberford locals? Was that an old watermill? Becker Hall is situated on Becker Lane within the old Gascoigne estate. The house is a Grade 2 listed building. There's a lot of references to that name in this area. The name of Becker Hall is first attested to in 1189 in the cartulary of Nostell Priory, simply as Becker. It's thought to come from an Old English word, which itself is a loan word from Old Norse. The beck in question is probably the Cock Beck. It's an important part of Aberford's history. The house was built in 1783 for William Markham, the son of the Archbishop of York and the private secretary to Warren Hastings. It descended in the Markham family for several generations until it was sold in 1894 by Ronald Markham to Arthur Thomas Schreiber, who lived there until his death in 1902. In 1958 it was bought by the Central Electricity Generating Board. Today's picture bit will show you what it looks like now. So the problem with Aberford being on the old Great North Road, it was always going to be a linear village, wasn't it? There's not really a circular route you can take around this place, although I think I have found one, which you'll see at the Strava app at the end is the route I've taken. But most of the time, coming off the main road, we have little streets, such like as Highfield Road that leads to Abbott's Close, which are little dead-end streets. Apart from these, we've got some bridleways and some footpaths which lead both directions actually, both to the east and to the west. The ones to the west lead onto the Parlington estate. Since the early 1990s, much new housing has been constructed here, as increasing affluence allows people to move away from city centres to rural and suburban areas. Demographically then, Aberford Parish has a population that's made up of 97.3% white British citizens, and the population density comes in at a tidy 194 per square kilometre. And the average house in the village will cost you £360,000. Aberford is served by a bus, and that would be the number 64 service into Leeds. There's also a school bus here to St Aidan's School. The village's pub is the Arabian Horse Inn, a major landmark within the conservation area. On the wall, there's something which tells us all about it, in much better words than I could ever use. Don't you just love it when you find a sign on a building that tells you all about it? It really makes my job so much easier. Here at the Arabian Horse, look at this. Built around 1770, the Arabian Horse is unique in that no other pub shares its name. Originally called the Bay Horse, the name was changed around 1850 when the first Arabian horses in the country were stranded at the pub on their way back to the gallops near Masham. People travelled for miles around to see the Arabs and the name stuck. How about that? Next door is a building that says Village Shop, but if it is one, it wasn't open. However, outside of this is something we're used to seeing in old red telephone boxes. May I present Aberford's free library? So I'm willing to wager that the house behind me is an old pub. It's called Rose and Crown Cottage, and Rose and Crown, for those people who don't live in the UK, it's a common name for a pub in the UK, that. The Swan Hotel was previously a staging post used by those travelling the Great North Road. It's now ceased to trade and is a private dwelling. Link in the description for this one, it's quite nice inside. St Ricarius Church next. The parish church is an 1861 rebuilding of a 12th century structure. The church is of Magnesian limestone with a slate roof. The west tower has a short octagonal spire and copies the style of the former tower. The belfry has Norman-style round-headed belfry windows on all sides and a clock face on the eastern side. There's a nave with both north and south aisles and a gabled porch to the south aisle. The chapel has a small priest's door and window, and there's a sundial dated from 1806 here too. One thing I missed was a former market cross thought to be of 17th century origin, which was relocated here in 1911. Like the church, the cross is of Magnesian limestone. There's a lettered brass plaque claiming the cross was removed during the plague in 1644 and restored and relocated to commemorate the coronation of King George V. Picture bit to my rescue for that one. There used to be a Methodist church here too, but as you can see, this is now a private dwelling. Jessamine Cottage is a small surgery, which you'd never notice from the road unless you were this close to it. Not your average GP surgery, this one. And next to the church is Aberford Church of England Primary School. Affiliated with the church adjacent to it, the school was originally a tithe barn and is owned by the Archdeacon of York. Recreation-wise, Aberford has a few things. One thing is Beckside Play Area, right next to Cock Beck. The village does have a football club too, but this falls within Parlington's boundaries. There's a decent-sized area of allotments off Field Lane too, between the village and the A1. And at the north of the village is Aberford Bowls Club, close to the entrance to the Parlington estate. Now normally a road like the A1 wouldn't be of major significance to a video like this because we've seen this road loads of times. However, just south of junction 44 where you exit for Aberford, this part of the road has some history of its own to speak about. That's because in 1999 a short but significant piece of new motorway was opened to the east of Leeds, completing what had been an obvious gap in the trunk road network, which would link the A1 to the M1. The two major roads meet just south of where we are now. The new road became part of the M1, but it meant the upgrading of the A1 to motorway standard between Hook Moor and Bramham Crossroads. On the face of it, this was a new but otherwise average piece of three-lane motorway, but building it proved more engineering challenges than met the eye. It never ceases to amaze me how busy our roads in the UK actually are. When you stand next to the A1 or the M1 or any road that's like this, any kind of motorway, and you just look for 5 minutes and you realise how much traffic there is actually on the road. You don't realise it when you're driving. The village green I found to be pretty interesting. This is literally right in front of the Arabian Horse Inn. There are 3 memorial benches here in a line. Here's one of them, up close, remembering Louis Cochrane. Here's a couple more buildings for you too. This is Aberford Lodge, close to the entrance to the Parlington estate. As is this building. This is Pike's Head Lodge, almost directly opposite Aberford Lodge. There's no shortage of buildings like these in the village. The crossing over the Cock River was deemed majorly important, and certainly important enough to warrant defending. On the north side of the river are the Aberford Dykes, which I'm not sure these are a part of, but they're earthworks, constructed to do just that. These days there's a lovely little bridge over the water dating from the 18th century. It's formed of 3 arches, and it's a stone bridge, the very same one that carried the Great North Road. There's also a footbridge here too, and both cross Cock Beck in the middle of the village. Cock Beck itself is a tributary of the River Wharfe, and its name may refer to a mature salmon, as it was a spawning ground for salmon and trout. In places the beck was relatively narrow but too deep to cross unaided, a feature which can still be seen today at many points along its length. Okay, it's about time you guys had a picture bit now for Aberford, and here it comes right now. Okay, that's it for part 1 of this little mini series. The other 2, Lotherton, Aberford and Parlington, will be coming in the next couple of weeks. And the Strava app, which you're about to see at the end of this video, will show my route around Aberford as normal, but it will also show part of the route to the south, which encompassed a little bit of both of those 2 parishes too, because with the tri-point being where it is, it didn't seem right to try and walk around it twice. So yeah, the route will be a little bit skewed at the southern end. But apart from that, that's been the parish of Aberford, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.